Hey, good morning, fam. Sorry we're late getting on. Had to rearrange some things. And just want to come to y'all today because we usually are sitting here talking on Sunday mornings. However, my partner has some really pressing issues to do with her son. And to me, all things are wonderful. Peace, Mama Akua. Everything is great. But when it comes to your children, I feel like everything else has to wait. That's the culture I grew up in, and I'm grateful. And speaking of such, so this morning I'm just going to tell you about a few things that's going to be happening this week. We'll be up and at it again next week. I needed a chance to get my bearings together. I have a lot of awesome interviews coming up. Had a lot of awesome interviews happen. So, God, this week was a great week. I didn't necessarily tune in this week to a lot of the things that are happening in the world. I didn't kind of do that this week. This week I had a lot of projects due. And one of the projects that I had due, one of the commitments I had was to facilitate a workshop called Gentrification of Public Health Crisis in San Francisco, Bayview, Hunter Point area. And it was absolutely phenomenal. It was produced by the Marin City Health and Wellness Center, the Bayview Hunters Point Clinic, which the CEO is Sister Javon Muhammad. This sister, incredible, y'all. The work that they're doing there, incredible. The staff, incredible. And so I want to kind of check in with you all this morning just to kind of give you a recap. So after facilitating that and seeing Javon's wonderful presentation around racism and gentrification, I feel like this conversation she had is something that we should be having across the globe, especially across the U.S. And I think it helped everyone, but particularly Black people, to understand how we are in the predicament that we're in. And so that is live on my Facebook page. You should check it out. I'm going to see if I can edit down also just to put Javon's piece up there. So today I'm going to be doing some technical work around making sure I can lift up things. So just to give you a little recap on my week, had some great interviews, of course, as always. Got a chance to talk to some people who are running for office. That was really nice because I also think that a lot of us work in different pieces, Sister Dana. We all work in different areas, but we had Sister Bina come and she talked about SCOE and what SCOE does. And so all over, at least for California, I'm pretty sure across the country, we have these departments of education, but it's for your city or your county. Hey, cuz, and you need to know what, they do. Like, why are they there? Why do we have Peace Queen? Why do we have that there? And then also we talk with another sister named Sister Miss Mouthpiece, incredible sister right there in our area. She shared a lot of love, a lot of light, a lot of information. She talked about the power of words. And then that Thursday with the gentrification conversation there. Good morning, cuz. And then after that, I had the pleasure of, I had a great weekend. So this weekend, my sister threw her 50th birthday party and all of my family came and my brothers, I have two brothers and my two sisters. It really was three of us, but my oldest sister's been deceased for about close to 20 years now. We all came together, and even though it was my sister's birthday party and we had a ball, there was something about the healing spirit and the power of mothers. I felt like, because my mother's been dead about 21 years, but there is something about, even when your mother isn't here per se in the flesh, her energy and her spirit is still here. So I put a post on my Facebook page really talking about just the undying love and the sacrifice, and when you have a mother who gives her all for her children. So even when she is not here anymore on the planet in the physical sense, her spirit, her energy, her love, her lessons, her sacrifice is still here. And this weekend I had a chance to really, really see that. I mean, I see it every day in my life. I'm a part of that energy. But there is something about a mother's love that even when she is transitioning on to a different place on the planet, her love is still here. And then I had the honor of interviewing my brother, who I don't spend a lot of time with. He came on the show yesterday, and I had a chance to sit and talk with him. And you know how in life, we all go different roads. We go out and we live. And my brother was the first in our family to go to college. He did some things that some of us never had a chance to really do. He was an athlete. But sometimes I just think athletes just play ball. I don't know what the hell they really do. I mean, I don't know them really personally. So my brother played ball overseas, but I was sitting listening to him yesterday during the interview, which I was so honored to interview my brother. I realized how much the same we really were. Like, we really are cut from the same cloth. We really came out of the same womb. He said so many things is like what I believe. You know what I mean? And sometimes you look at people and you think that because they're not out there with that dashiki or black this or black that they don't understand the black experience. But I think we learn to deal with this experience in America the way we know it to be. And I think my brother, like in interviewing him yesterday and talking with him, I learned a lot about how people, and it didn't come off. Sometimes people could be talking to you and it really does come off like self-hatred, because I've experienced that when it's like people kind of hate to see you shine or to recognize you black. He didn't say that. He basically, because in my mind, I think that was a part of my own perception. But what I learned from my brother yesterday was, even for our brothers and sisters who work in corporate America and who are raising their families, he's been married 24 years to the same woman that he met in college. They have, together they have 3 sons. They have 3 sons. He has 3 sons. And watching him talk about being a man, being a black man, talking about how one of his sons is an athlete. The other one's really smart and brilliant. They were both really smart and brilliant. But talking about his struggles from a for real place, and then also happened to go into corporate America, and to hear my brother talk about what happens when you realize you're not going to the NBA. You know what I mean? But he was also very smart. He talked about he's a Christian. He talked about using his Christian principles and faith. And when he talked about the 5 things that he lives his life by, and he talked about, having faith. Well, that was my mom. My mother was a Christian. My mother was a spiritualist. She understood that the Bible is not something that you read. It's something that you apply. You don't use the Bible to beat up on people. You use it to better yourself. It's supposed to be a map to your liberation so you feel good about yourself. He talked about, working hard. My mother was a hard worker. My mother had 3 and 4 jobs. My mother would take care of her children and not buy her medicine. Like, she would make sure we had, even if it meant she could not buy her medicine. That was a hard working mother. My mother would work swing shifts. She cleaned. My mother was a sacrifice. She worked hard. To hear my brother talk about her hard working, how she worked hard. He talked about having good character. My mother was very big on good character. My mother was very big about that. Like, how do you show up to people? How you talk to people? Even when you necessarily are facing adversity, how do you still not break that good character? My mother was very big on that, which is probably why I'm very big on it. But hear my brother talk about, he talked about karma, like, in terms of that good character. And when you step out of being good character, somehow, you come around, you have to deal with the things you did that were not in good character. And then he also talked about, I know I'm missing one thing, good character, faith. But the last thing he said, he talked about after you gain all this information and everything else, then you have to share it. You have to share it. And I think sometimes in our culture, I'll see people with 20 pairs of tennis shoes, and then, like, you only have 2 feet, So, how do we share the things that we have? Think about all the things you may have in your home or access things you may have. Do we share that? My mother was one of those people who shared everything she had. I can remember people living with us because my mother was like, we have to share what we have. And so this weekend to me was quite incredible. It was nice to be with my siblings, to be with my older brother, had my brother come from Florida, just talking about his gifts and things that he learned. And I felt like, wow, when I was talking to my brother, I was looking at a reflection of my mother. again, because I look at her, when I see my sisters, I see her. I see my brothers, I see her. When I see my nieces and nephews and great nephews, and I see this woman named May. That's my mom's name. I see this woman who came to California following her husband, being a good Christian woman, and then wasn't treated as well, but she never talked bad about my dad. You know, she really was a woman standing on her principles, and she worked really hard, and she didn't complain. You know what I mean? And so no matter how I felt about it, there was something that she was able to give all of us, all of my siblings, all of my 5 siblings. She gave us something that even now to this day, I'm always trying to apply those things and really take care of myself. I learned some lessons from my mother. Even in her not being here, I'm still studying her life. Like, how did my mom feed 6 children with $20? Like, how did she do that? You know, how did she keep her faith, even though sometimes she did not go to church? You know what I mean? How did she do that? You know, did she, you know what I mean? My mother read her Bible. You know, she played her music. You know what I mean? It's the way she interacted with us. I've never seen my mom smoke. I've never seen her drink. You know what I mean? I've never seen her do any of those things. She didn't have men running in and out of our house. Only person I ever seen my mom with was my dad. I'm going to tell you, I'm a grown woman. I'm 46 years old. And I still wonder, how did my mom make it through? Didn't she want a man to hold her and love her? You know what I mean? But she was really like dedicated to my father. She would say, I'm married, even though they hadn't been together in like 10 years. Never. My mother never went on dates. She worked. She was a sacrificer. She sacrificed. So when spending time with my brothers and sisters, there she was. There she was. I feel like when you do the right thing, you will live forever. Your memory will never go. I think about Sister Harriet Tubman. She had no birth children, but we speak her name as if we know her personally. Like, we can feel her energy when you step in certain places, or you're seeking out a plan, or you feel Sister Harriet. You can almost see her boots, if you will. So my weekend was super full. And then dear sister Dana had some commitments, and that was great. Next Sunday we'll definitely be back up and at it. Matter of fact, next Sunday on the 18th, we're going to be doing a discussion, a roundtable, if you will, with a live audience, talking about issues that are happening in our community. Because I was very inspired and just motivated by the conversation on Thursday, by hanging with my sisters and brothers and my nieces and nephews, watching how they grow. Last night we stayed up to 2 a.m. laughing, going over old pictures, and there were my nieces and nephews, and just watching them. Now they're like in their 20s, and you know, some are in their early 30s, and I'm like, wow, like, you know, just all of that is made for me. So even when I sit here and I come to you on this podcast, on this live, that's my mom. This is the May that probably wanted to do this but couldn't, but she planted really good seeds in this soil of me. And now it sprouts out, and now I'm planting seeds in other people. Yesterday morning, I met with my Nurturing Greatness interns, and we talked about the seed, and we went over some of the history, and it was really, really incredible just to spend time with them and hear them. You know, I was giving them lessons that my mom gave me, that my Uncle Stanley gave me, that, you know, Uncle Billy and his humor. And, you know, I found myself planting seeds and really explaining to them, like, what does it mean to plant seeds? How do you make sure a root is firm and stable? Let me tell you something, y'all. It's not having a bunch of money. It's not giving your kids the latest clothes. It's not letting your kids talk to you crazy because you want to do some new freestyle parenting. It's not any of that stuff. It's really the time that you spend with them. Is what are you showing them? I heard my brothers talk about things that they learned growing up that they had to unlearn. Sitting at the table with 2 black men talking about their experience growing up in our family, and then taking what they learned and was shown, and then walking out in the world with it and realizing, yeah, some of this stuff we can't be doing. Like, that is like, that comes from a deep seed. Like that, my mother was busy gardening. She did not have the best, but what she had was her children, and they meant everything to her, because she knew we were going to see days that she couldn't even think of in her own imagination, but she knew she was going to prepare us for it. You know, she didn't belong to social clubs. She wasn't a part of black movements. You know, she was basically doing her job in terms of taking care of her family. We talked about, we have our own experiences about our dad, but you would never be able to talk bad about my father in front of my mother. She wasn't having it. And so it really didn't matter, you know, when we really looked at our lives, and as we talked about everything. We laughed, we cried, we was cussing. I mean, 'cause we have all never been together in over 20 years. We have never all of us sat down together. And I suggest, hey, if you out there, you ain't talked to your family in years in terms of sitting together, healing comes when we sit down with each other and we talk about those hard things and we love each other enough to go through it. So I think our community, our children, our descendants, people we're never going to see, deserve for us to talk about those things that shook our community in such a way, and to dig deep inside of us and forgive ourselves for the way we reacted to things. We're not all the same. We may all take different roads, but we're family, y'all. My brother said something that was quite interesting yesterday. He said, because this is my brother who I love, but I didn't really know much about his struggle. And he talked about slavery in the way I've never heard him talk about slavery before. He basically talked about all the things that we have been through. And he said, you know, we ain't at the worst president. This is not the worst president we've ever seen. Think about our ancestors and who they see. Here is my brother who I had my own ideas of who I thought he was. You know, I thought he was kind of whitewashed a little bit. That was my lens I was seeing him through. But he was finding his own way, being in worlds that we never knew anything about, and having to deal with his own shortcomings, or maybe he had to make some detours, and watching how he is with his sons and watching him. My mother was a Christian, so, you know, she instilled a lot of the Christian values where you're supposed to take care of each other and, you know, and still strive. And here he was telling me about, I know about that. That's why I'm on the road that I'm on. I remember those lessons. You know, I remember him talking about how when he was in college, how he had friends who had lots of money, and my mother would be sending him a letter with $20 in it and telling him how proud she was of him. You know what I mean? So sometimes you never know people's journey. So I know I didn't know my brother's all their stuff. I just know what I see from the outside. But it's something about sitting down with your siblings and talking about those times and bringing some healing in there, because healing comes when you get to look at things. It's not about not letting people use their words or not letting them have a moment to say what they got to say, or because we do that a lot. A lot of us don't want to. It's kind of like after slavery. A lot of us didn't really know what really happened at that time, because it was a shameful thing for some people. So they never want to talk about it. I have elders who never want to talk about whatever they experience. But when you don't talk about it, it just kind of rolls forward. And it's right there. We don't even know how to say, we need to talk about this. You know, when I'm talking with my dear sister Dana, and we talk about that crack period. You can't get black folks to talk about that crack period, but we need to, because it's right here. And we want to know why our kids don't know our traditions and our cultures and that time when what we did to stick together, and our kids don't have a clue, because we don't want to talk about that time. But we need to. How do you tell them when someone's not here and why they're not here? Do we just act like they didn't exist and then we just keep rolling? No, we got to talk about this. It's not easy. None of this is easy. You know what I mean? But there was something about sitting with my siblings, talking about growing up in North Philadelphia, talking about watching my parents at the time when they were together, buy us a house and move us to Germantown, trying to give us the best that they could with what they had. Like it was something about, it was a strength there that we were drawing from. And then to hear, talk about how we got to California. And then watching how, we talked about traditions and things we learned in culture. We talked about outdated ideas, and we talked about the influence on religion, good and bad, and how, you know what I mean? At some point to say, yeah, that didn't work for us. And we're doing something different. Don't mean I don't love my ancestors. It just means that don't work for me right now. That's not working right now. We talked about watching a woman struggle in the part of the world away from her family and working heck of jobs and never complaining. Never complaining. Which is why my mom had diabetes and died at the same age as her mother from the same exact thing. Because I studied her life a lot. And so this weekend was one of those weekends that I was so full. Just sitting, and I think it was so much healing. Even when we started talking about my father, our father, and hearing my brothers really having to deal with how they felt about him, and then say, but I love him. But this is what I'm changing about, that I learned from him, that I had to unlearn because I want to be a good husband. I don't want my children to feel what I feel. Watching my brothers talk about that was so healing for me around the table. And it was some shouting, and it was some, we giving our part for as the girls and watching our moms. And my one brother was a mama's boy, and the other one was, with his dad. And, and then having to say, there was some things I was learning that, as I became a man, it wasn't serving me. And hear my brother say my father was like my superhero. To hear my brother talk about that. So I just feel like y'all, to get this healing started in our community, we're going to have some serious in-house conversations with our siblings, talk about those things so we can stop passing this stuff on. We got to talk about that crack period. We got to talk about it. What was going on with us, but that was an option for some of us. And that's probably going to be a hard conversation because we're dealing with a whole bunch of young people who came out of those people, some of them who are not here and some who are still here. Excuse me, could you give me a napkin, please, right there? Please. So, I just feel like y'all, look here, we are resilient people. I think at this point in the game, nothing can really break us but ourselves. We have survived like just horrible things here in the United States. But yet we also created wonderful things. Nobody does religion the way we do religion. Nobody recognizes the Creator the way we do. Nobody does that. Even when people take away everything you have from you, we still rise. But we have to go back to those places because, believe it or not, our children are watching us. And the children that we don't see are definitely going to know our story. And what kind of story do we want to leave for them to follow? My mother's been dead 21 years. 21 years. And I say her name almost every day when I wake up. When I think I'm in the midst of a struggle and I think about her life and how she had to make it with her 6 children on her own, in a state where she knew absolutely no one, and never hear her complain. But I also know, because I love my mother so much and she's an extension of me, that I want to make sure I look at the things that shortened her life so that my life will not be shortened, so that I can be here to make sure the young people and everyone that I meet get some of that sunshine. Because I think when I'm talking to people, who haven't gotten their needs met, and I suspect that's probably who my dad is. How do you sacrifice all that you have to make sure that your children, my mother was, if I had to come up with the word for my mother, this solid word would be she was a sacrificer. She gave her all, even if it meant her life, because ultimately that's what happened when your body starts breaking down. So I think we gotta have these conversations. So for me this weekend, I could not have prepared myself to be sitting and talking with my brothers and my sisters. Well, we hadn't been together in 20 years. 20 years we hadn't been together. So to me, that was absolutely, I felt like my mother was just in the room, binding us together. There were times when if one come in the room, if one was going to hear that another one was coming, we wouldn't come. So what was happening? And then after my sister party, the next night we sat down and talked and laughed. And it's like, y'all, we got to do this. We got to do this. This is, hey, y'all, we can absolutely do this right. I know we've done great things. We built pyramids. We're always looking for the greatness in us outside of ourselves. We did this in history. We did that. What are you doing right now with the family that you have right now? Are you talking to your sister? Y'all done fell out over some BS? Are you talking to your brothers? Like, what are you talking? You have a niece that you stole some stuff. You still mad at her about that? We talked about you can love people from a distance, and that's okay. But at some point, if you really want that healing to come, if you really, for yourself, then you gotta talk to each other. The cutest thing, after we finished our meeting yesterday, my brother talked about how are we going to stay connected to each other so we can talk to each other. And to me, that was like, this is a brother I hadn't talked to a lot. And we came up with something that we were going to do. It was really cute. And then it was like, wow. It was like the time had never even passed us. The time had never even passed us. So, when you think about it, y'all, and I'm crying, it's not like a sad cry, but it's just kind of like, wow. Of all the things that have happened to us as a people, only thing can break us, is yourself. And I felt like my mother used to tell us, you are all that you have. You are all that you have. And there we were, sitting with each other, laughing, talking, reminiscing. It was absolutely beautiful. So for me, y'all know I love doing all these talks. That's what I do. This is not what I had planned to talk about this morning. Get myself together. But what I absolutely realized is how much I really miss my brothers. Miss just the bond. In that moment, I felt like I was in 1981 or something, when we were all younger and hanging around, and my mom would do dinners and absolutely so grateful. So wherever you are, if you're cool with your family, stay cool with them. If you ain't cool with them, make it right. Make it right. Because that's the healing, and that healing that happens with us, I think it will vibrate to generations we're never going to see. I don't know all of my ancestors by name, but I'm willing to bet some of them prayed some prayers back when things were hard for them, but I don't think their prayer was immediately for their immediate situation. I think their prayers were for the time that we're in now. And I feel like we have the same responsibility to do that, to do those prayers for people in our line that we're never going to see. You know what I mean? And then to do the work to make sure those prayers happen. You know, one thing is like we do the prayer, and then the other one we do the action. And so it feels good to say that, because I also think for some Black women, part of our hardness is having to be out in the world on your own and not necessarily having that male figure or, you know, whatever it is for you. And then to have them come back. That's why words are so powerful. And to recognize and to share their story with you through their words. And then it helps you as a human being to be like, wow, I was sitting over here tripping. This person, you know, we could have been talking to each other. So for me, and you're so right, sister, there are definitely tears of healing. But I just was like, when I think back on my mother, because everything for us in our line comes back to our mom. Because here's a woman who didn't fall down when people were falling down. My mother didn't drink, she didn't smoke, and she wasn't into like this. She just had to have a man. That was not my mother. My mother's concern was for her children, because in her tradition, when you bring children onto the planet, your job is to make sure you sacrifice for them. And so here's a woman in a time in our country where people were on drugs and drinking and, you know, just have to have a man, even though the man was not a good man. That was not my mother, May. You know what I mean? She didn't judge others. She was still taking people in. You know, she worked 3 or 4 jobs. She really made sure that we had the basics, you know what I mean? And never at the same time, never saying anything bad about her husband who went on his way to do him and to meet his needs. And so for me, when we were all sitting around that table last night, I felt May. I felt my mother. I really began to understand her story more now than I ever did. Even though I study her, I study our family, I do all of that. But I know my mother did prayers that last night they were showing up. When we were all sitting around that table talking and laughing and doing whatever. There was May. There was our mom. There was our beloved. And every time we say her name, it's almost like it's almost like a sacred thing. Because we can't even phantom, because we have each other. But she had no one but her belief. But she didn't have like another human being and she didn't complain about it. And my mother was 52 when she died, which is very young. We talked about that. You know, 52 is very young to die, to have your body just start breaking down on you. So, y'all, it is Sunday morning. I am so grateful to be here above ground. My brother said, you always have a shot if you're above the asphalt. You know what I mean? So no matter what's going on in your life, and you ain't got enough this or enough that, what you do have is yourself. And when you think about our ancestors, you know, and I say that, I could just go right to my mom and just can't even phantom the rest of the story. But watching her be in the land and she did not know anyone, and having angels come and help her along the way to sustain her family. And then 21 years after her passing, to bring us all back to the table, you know, means I have work to do, you know, and all of us have work to do. So I just want to share that with you all this morning. That was so heavily on my heart. I was trying to figure out how I was going to talk about it. And whew, Lord God, I just know I look crazy. This week I have some really good interviews. I'm so psyched. Yes, Diane. Oh man, I can't even tell you. And I know a lot of us have lost our moms, you know, our moms and ancestors. But even though they're gone, they're still here. They're still, their energies are still here, you know. Because what I did though, even when my mother passed, she was tired. You know, her body was absolutely tired. You know, but I also think when people leave you, then a bigger test comes. And that's the test, you know. It's kind of like you were young and you wonder, why my mom won't let me do this? That was my favorite line. My mother was like, no, we ain't doing that. You don't do this. You don't. But really, the thank you, thank you. The beautiful thing is, My mother was giving us all that she had. My mother came into the world, under certain circumstances, but she never let that hold her back. Never let that hold her back. I can't even imagine. I have two sisters that I'm so, so tight with. I love you too, sis. But I can't. My mom didn't have any of that. We get on each other's nerves, but they got my back. My mom didn't have that. So I wonder, how did she, what was that about? But I'm learning what that is about in my own journeys. So it's Sunday morning, y'all. Yeah, calling the all right now. 60 years. Wow. 60 years young. Too young, y'all. And these are people who, sometimes in my own journey, I would wonder, why does the Creator take certain people? When you're young, you're like, don't take that person, take this person, because you're young. But when you think about it, when you have people on the planet that's doing the work, they got to get some rest. You don't want them to rest. You want them to stay here forever. But it's like, no, when your journey has been hard and you've been solid on your game and you've been, doing what you're supposed to do and you've been out here working, you know what I mean? No. You deserve a rest. You deserve a rest. My mom used to say, you never get the chance to leave until you get everything right. So I hear people say, the person died too young. That's our observation. But it's kind of like, hey, what did you do while you was here? My mother was an early riser. It's Sunday morning. I do stuff in remembrance of her. I get up and play the Hawkins Singers. That's what I do. Because with the Hawkins Singers, my mom was always trying to work something out. Gave her comfort, gave her solitude. Kept her going. So grateful. So, so grateful for those ancestors. And I know my mother will live forever because of the sacrifices that she made and the examples that she gave. And I'm pretty sure others out there have that with their moms. We have to make sure that energy lives. I don't be caring about the other crazy energy because that ain't my line. I don't really, but I often think about when I'm getting jams or I'm trying to figure out stuff or trying to make changes or trying to change things so that I would be here on the planet longer. I have to always think about what would my mom do? And then sometimes I think about what would my mom do if she had options? Because sometimes you think, it's about, if I had this much money, it don't even matter because we ain't even had that kind of money. So I know I have other options. You know what I mean? So, y'all, look here. That's why I didn't put a bunch of makeup on this morning. I don't know. I was like, I got to get on this line. I got to talk to people. It's Sunday morning and my partner is doing some other stuff. So I'm like, all right, you ain't never lied. So, thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for tuning in. I'm just grateful. My ancestor altar is right here. Turn my there go my grandmother. There go my mom. That's my mother May right there. That's May right there. Oh, that's my mom May. That's her mother. Grandma Alice. There go my Uncle Stanley. We talked about him last night. It was cracking up laughing. Because he's always been old to me. If he was living now, he'd be like 95. But he would just say such things that just, when you're young, you think older people are being kind of, grouchy. But he would be straight kicking knowledge. And he just said it flat out. So we talked about all of them and watching young people watch us talk about our ancestors. You know what I mean? And like, wow, like, they was loving it. Like when we all got together, like this is like a little later on when we were all together just kind of laughing, going through pictures, you know what I mean? And we were cracking up laughing at ourselves, at like where we were, where we used to live, We're from North Philadelphia. We talked about that. We talked about moving to California. We talked about sleeping on car mats. We talked about our journey here. You know what I mean? We didn't come out here on no Greyhound bus. We came out here in my dad's truck, in his truck, the company that he worked for, and he brought us out in teams, if you will. I mean, we talked about all of that. And some of us laughed so hard we started crying. You know what I mean? So, whew, I mean, that's what it's about, y'all. But I just know I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. I'm so hopeful. I'm so grateful. And I'm going to keep talking with young people. Next week, I got some folks coming on to talk about some things, some candidates, but also some young people coming in. And I always want to hear from them because I feel like how we learn to get it right, too, is listening to them. And I think for me, when I listen to young people, I hear myself. I hear the things that I needed that I didn't know how to say because I felt like, sometimes adults were too busy to give that to us because they were trying to survive themselves. So, we're going to be talking to some young folks next week as well as other people. And then I also know on next Sunday, we're having a morning session, then we're going to have evenings. Evenings when we're going to really talk about some stuff in the round table. It's going to be some brothers at the table, some sisters at the table, and a whole lot of conversation going on. But you know what, y'all? It's Sunday morning. We're above the asphalt. We're standing. We woke up this morning, and I give thanks for that. I give thanks for waking up in my right mind and being able to recognize who I am, celebrate who I am. I feel like even when they tried to take everything they can from us, what they couldn't really take away was that spirit that we have of resilience, that we will never, ever forget our ancestors and their struggles and their journeys. I just give thanks. And as I leave you on this Sunday morning, thanks for all the awesome comments. I feel like I was having like a conversation with my people. Y'all was my therapist this morning, listening to me, and letting me know that, older people used to say, if you just keep living, if you just keep living, if you just keep living. And they used to get on my nerves when they used to say that, like, what do you mean? Why you can't give me the answer? But sometimes the answer is just keep living. Peace, family. Blessings.